Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, and we're studying the words of the Buddha. We're starting a new volume today. We're going to be starting volume 4, which is titled Exploring the Path to Enlightenment. We're going to be studying this book just for a short time, about 3 or 4 weeks, where we're going to be going chapter by chapter, 10 chapters per class. And if you read these before class or after class, you're going to get a lot more benefit. Some of these chapters you've actually seen in other books, but this is a nice little transition book into volume 5, which is going to prepare you with everything that is needed in order to be able to get to the first stage of enlightenment. So I'd like to welcome you to our class today, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly. The way that we do this program is I invite students who are in Zoom to be able to read a chapter from the book. And then after someone reads a chapter, I'm going to share some teachings on that. And then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you have, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. You can ask questions by putting that into the comments section if you're in any of those platforms. And then if you're in Zoom, you have the added functionality of being able to electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So if you'd like to either volunteer to read or if you would like to ask questions, you're welcome to raise your hand. So is there anyone in Zoom who would like to read this first chapter? Okay, it looks like Pat. Go ahead, sir.
A small amount of existence is not praiseworthy. Monks, just as even a small amount of feces is foul-smelling, so too I do not praise even a small amount of existence, even for a mere finger snap. Monks, just as even a small amount of urine is foul-smelling, a small amount of saliva is foul-smelling, a small amount of pus is foul-smelling, a small amount of blood is foul-smelling, so too I do not praise even a small amount of existence, even for a mere finger snap. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So this is a key chapter to be able to help you to understand some misunderstandings that exist in the world. And also it plugs into the overall goals of what the Buddha is helping you to be able to accomplish as part of progressing on the path to enlightenment. So he's essentially saying that he's not praising to be in existence. Now, this can seem somewhat pessimistic if you haven't understood the teachings of the Buddha, and you might think that maybe he's being pessimistic here. But an enlightened being isn't actually pessimistic. What he's actually sharing is the truth, that as long as there's a being that comes into existence, if there's birth, there's going to be sickness, aging, death, sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. This is going to come to be. So that's why he's saying he doesn't praise existence, because as soon as a being comes into the world, of course, there's crying, there's pain, there's misery, there's sorrow. And of course, there's certain pleasurable things about life. But if there's birth, there's going to be sickness, aging, death, sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. But having gotten to enlightenment, your mind will be completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. Where in the unenlightened state, life can seem quite miserable and quite daunting. But by the time you get to enlightenment, life is wonderful. It's very fulfilling and everything's satisfied. You're fully content and you're never even in a bad mood. Even the slightest little ickiness is eliminated from the mind. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that this path to enlightenment, it leads to the elimination of continued existence in the cycle of rebirth. And you've probably gathered that from other chapters, but he's starting to say that more explicitly here. And where this is really helpful is that you'll hear some people talk in Buddhist communities and say that the goal of this journey, the goal of the teachings of the Buddha is to not get to enlightenment, to stay in existence, keep coming back over and over and over again, and be able to help others to be able to get to enlightenment. While this sounds kind of interesting in terms of helping others get to enlightenment, yeah, that's wonderful. But coming back into the world over and over and over again, it's not guaranteed what realm you're actually going to come back into the world as. If you're banking on coming back into the world as a human being, that may not actually be true. And how could you ever help somebody else get to enlightenment if you haven't actually got to enlightenment yourself? You wouldn't be able to do that. So there's this huge misunderstanding in the world where people sometimes even take vows to be able to say that they're going to stay in the unenlightened state. They're going to continue to come back into the world over and over, and they're going to help others to get to enlightenment. And they think getting to enlightenment on your own, in terms of, progressing towards your own enlightenment, people sometimes say that's selfish. Well, it's not selfish to get to enlightenment. In fact, it's the most selfless thing that you could do. What would be selfish is to actually stay in the unenlightened state. Because if you stay in the unenlightened state, there's a certain amount of bitterness, harshness, and hostility. There's a certain amount of unwise moral conduct that you're putting out that's causing harm in your day to day life. Because as an unenlightened being, you're still causing harm to people around you. Even in the first, second, and third stage of enlightenment, there can still be harm that is happening. At least in the first and second stages, there can still be harm that is actually occurring in terms of this individual. So getting to enlightenment is to decide that you're no longer interested in causing harm to others. Staying in the unenlightened state would be very selfish because now you're going to continue to cause harm. So you can see in the words of the Buddha very clearly what he actually taught, so that way you can't be misled, no matter what you see in Facebook groups, Instagram, no matter what you see in other books that people write or anything like that. This is one of the beauties about studying with the original words of the Buddha, is you can see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. And here you can see very clearly that he's not teaching to come back into the world over and over and over again. In fact, the thing that's really interesting about this misunderstanding is, what did the Buddha do? The Buddha got to enlightenment first. Then he helped others get to enlightenment, and then he shared that he's never coming back ever again, that he's done with this existence, and he didn't declare what would or wouldn't come next for him. So we can see very clearly through all of his teachings, not just this one, but the totality of all the other teachings, what he actually taught here. And now you can see this to be true for yourself, because once you actually learn dependent origination and you see the 12 interlinking steps of what leads to existence, you can see as you dismantle dependent origination that your mind becomes completely peaceful and joyful. And you'll know that you've gotten to enlightenment because it's been 1 year, 2 years, 3 years that you're completely peaceful and joyful. And you'll also know that you've eliminated continued existence as well. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere, so we'll move on to the next chapter. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 2? Okay, Samantha, go ahead, ma'am.
One who is engaged is unliberated. One who is disengaged is liberated. Monks, one who is engaged is unliberated. One who is disengaged is liberated. Consciousness monks, while standing, might stand engaged with form. Based upon form, established upon form, with a sprinkling of excitement, it might come to growth, increase, and expansion. Or consciousness, while standing, might stand engaged with feeling. Based upon feeling, established upon feeling, with the sprinkling of excitement, it might come to growth, increase, and expansion. Or consciousness, while standing, might stand engaged with perception. Based upon perception, established upon perception, with the sprinkling of excitement, it might come to growth, increase, and expansion. Or consciousness, while standing, might stand engaged with volitional formations. Based upon volitional formations, established upon volitional formations, with the sprinkling of excitement, it might come to growth, increase, and expansion. Monks, though some might say, separated from form, separated from feeling, separated from perception, separated from volitional formations, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness, its passing away and rebirth, its growth, increase, and expansion is impossible. Monks, if a monk has abandoned desire for the form aggregate, with the abandoning of craving, the basis is cut off. There is no support for the establishing of consciousness. If he has abandoned desire for the feeling aggregate, for the perception aggregate, for the volitional formations aggregate, for the consciousness aggregate, with the abandoning of craving, the basis is cut off. There is no support for the establishing of a consciousness. When that consciousness is unestablished, not coming to growth, non-generative, the mind is liberated. By being liberated, the mind is steady. By being steady, the mind is content. By being content, one is not agitated. By being unagitated, one personally attains nibbana. One understands, destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of existence.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. So I think we might have seen this chapter already in our previous book, but just to kind of refresh for those of you guys that have seen that, and maybe there's some people here that actually wasn't around when we actually studied this particular chapter. Here, what the Buddha is using this word engaged for is kind of a replacement for craving, desire, attachment. And of course, unliberated means the mind is unfree. It's bound up, because when the mind is having craving, desire, attachment, when it's engaged, the mind is not free, that it's having stress and anxiety, it's having frustration, the mind's all bound up. But when the mind is disengaged, meaning it's practicing non-craving, it doesn't have clinging or attachment, then the mind is liberated, it's free. So the Buddha is here talking about the consciousness being engaged is unliberated, it's disengaged, it's liberated. And now he's talking about the five aggregates, about how the mind can essentially crave and cling to these five aggregates. And it can experience excitement, and that excitement can grow, it can increase and expand. That excitement, remember, is conditional excitement, that based on some condition, the mind is then going to experience excitement. So with the physical form, if your mind clings to this physical form, meaning the body, then maybe you cling to the youthful appearance. And now you get so excited when you have a certain haircut, or you have a certain skin complexion, or you get a certain, type of clothing or something like this that you wear. You get so excited about that. And now it grows, increases, and expands. But the danger in this is that if you allow your mind to get the conditioned pleasant feelings, the painful feelings are going to come right after that when the body starts changing. And the same thing can happen with these other aggregates that make this being who you are, which is feelings, the perceptions, which are your views and opinions, and then the volitional formations or the choices and decisions. The mind can cling to any of these things. And now if you get excitement in those things and you allow that to come into the mind and welcome it, and it's going to increase and expand. And what the Buddha essentially is saying down here is he's saying, if someone says that they're going to be separated from these things, and because they're separated from form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, which are choices and decisions, they're going to make known the coming and going of consciousness, meaning they're going to describe and explain the cycle of rebirth, its passing away, its growth, increase, and expansion. He's saying that's impossible because the person is just separated from these things, that they've separated themselves, but they haven't done the next part, which is what will help you to actually be able to understand the cycle of rebirth, which is abandon it. If you abandon the desire, if you abandon that craving, desire, attachment for each one of these aggregates, now when you eliminate inside the mind that desire, that longing, yearning, that craving for permanence, now with the abandoning of that craving, then the basis for continued existence is cut off. There's no support for the establishing of consciousness. The way that you can think about this is that if you had a fire with logs on it, and the logs are the fuel, and it's sending off sparks into the air, when that spark is carried by the wind and it lands and it ignites a new fire, it comes from the fuel from the old fire, but it's a completely new fire. So the same thing is true that when you die, if you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, where the mind's longing, yearning, it's holding on, that's the fuel. And now it's going to create a spark that produces the next consciousness. So if an individual has abandoned desire, if their mind is no longer holding on and clinging to these aggregates, that's where you can understand that there's no more support for the continued consciousness. And you can dismantle dependent origination, and you can see that this is occurring. So it's important to understand that when the Buddha talks about abandoning the desire for these five aggregates of form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness, what he's saying is that you're eliminating the longing, the yearning in the mind, right? So if you were craving and clinging to this physical form, someone might be obsessively trying to make this body look a certain way, right? And now you're clinging to that and you're holding on to it almost obsessively. But if you were all the way on the other side, where you could care less about this body and you weren't taking care of it, that's not going to produce peace and joy either. So abandoning the desire for each of these aggregates is to come to the middle. And now you're not clinging to this. right? So you need to take care of this physical body, but you're not clinging to it and you're not obsessed about it, but you're also not ignoring it either. Those are the two opposite extremes. The same thing is true about these feelings, your perceptions, your volitional formations and consciousness. You're not obsessed about it. You're not holding on to it and clinging to it, but you're not all the way on the other side either. So for example, like perceptions, by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have certain opinions about things in the world. You will have certain views, but you won't be clinging to them, right? And you won't be out there arguing and advocating for people. You won't be trying to force your views and opinions on other people, because that's what we do in the unenlightened state. When we're clinging to our perceptions, we want everyone to agree with us, and we might be out there trying to convince others that our way is the right way. And that's not what you would be doing as an enlightened being. You would have certain perceptions, but you wouldn't be clinging to those things. So when the consciousness is unestablished, when there's no coming and going, that this growth of the consciousness is not possible because all the craving has been eliminated, the mind is actually liberated. Because when the consciousness is unestablished, when there's no craving, desire, attachment to produce the next consciousness, then the mind's liberated, it's free. And that's where the Buddha then says, okay, the mind being liberated, the mind is steady, the mind being steady, the mind is content, the mind being content, it's not agitated, being unagitated, one attains enlightenment. So this is kind of like a short little description from the Buddha of what enlightenment is. And as we were talking in a previous class, I mentioned to you, sometimes you'll hear people say that, describing enlightenment is beyond the ability of anybody to describe. And some people say that the Buddha never described enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. You can see here that he actually describes it. And he describes it in other places too. So once an individual has gotten to enlightenment, they will understand that destroyed is birth, that there's no longer any rebirth. And the way that they'll understand that is because in order to have gotten to enlightenment, you would have needed to independently verify dependent origination, and you would have seen those 12 interlinking steps. You would have been able to see the truth about that. You would have dismantled it where it's been 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You're not experiencing any discontentedness. And you will have known that this has led to enlightenment, and it also has led to the ending of any continuous rebirth. And at that point, you will have lived this holy life, this pure life for a period of time. What had to be done has been done. You've done the training. You've done the work. There's no more work for you to do. You're beyond training by the time you get to enlightenment. That there's no more training that you need to do. You're just living your life effortlessly with this new mind that you've upgraded to. And then there's no more for this state of existence, that there's going to be, this existence is going to come to an end, but then there's no longer any future existence in the cycle of rebirth for an enlightened being. But what may or may not happen next for that being, the Buddha leaves as an undeclared teaching. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this particular chapter, where the Buddha's using some words like engaged and disengaged to help you be able to see another aspect of how the mind is kind of holding on and, kind of almost obsessed with the 5 aggregates. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Okay, I don't see any questions. So we'll go to chapter 3. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Okay, Vibhav, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, teacher. One dwelling with craving as a partner. Venerable sir, in what way is one dwelling with a partner? There are Megajala, forms recognizable by the eye, that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tempting. A monk sees excitement in them, welcomes them, and remains floating to them. Excitement arises. When there is excitement, there is obsession of mind. When there is obsession of mind, there is bondage. Bound by the fetter of sensual desire, Megajala, monk is called one dwelling with a partner. There are Megajala, sounds recognizable by the ear, odors recognizable by the nose, flavors recognizable by the tongue, physical objects recognizable by the body, mental objects recognizable by the mind that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tempting. If a monk sees excitement in them, he is called one dwelling with a partner, Megajala. Even though a monk who dwells thus resorts to forests and groves, to remote lodgings where there are few sounds and little noise, unoccupied, hidden from people, appropriate for seclusion, he is still called one dwelling with a partner. For what reason? Because craving is his partner, and he has not abandoned it. Therefore, he is called one dwelling with a partner. Venerable Sir, in what way is one a lone dweller? There are Megajala, forms recognizable by the ear, eye that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tempting. A monk does not seek excitement in them, does not welcome them, and does not remain holding to them. Excitement is eliminated. When there is no excitement, there is no obsession of mind. When there is no obsession of mind, there is no bondage. Released from the fetter of sensual desire, Megajala, a monk is called a lone dweller. There are Megajala, sounds recognizable by the ear, odors recognizable by the nose, flavors recognizable by the tongue, physical objects recognizable by the body, mental objects recognizable by the mind that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tempting. If a monk does not seek excitement in them, he is called one a lone dweller. Megajala, even though a monk who dwells thus lives in the vicinity of a village, associating with male and female ordained practitioners, with male and female household practitioners, with kings and royal ministers, with sectarian teachers and the disciples, he is still called a lone dweller. For what reason? Because craving is his partner, and he has abandoned it. Therefore, he is called a lone dweller.
All right. Thank you, Vibhav. So, one of the ways to think about this is craving, desire, attachment, that mental longing and strong eagerness, chasing after the objects of your affection, that unquenchable thirst that the mind just wants more and more and more and more and more. It's like a burden that you're carrying around on your shoulders, or it's like a monster that the mind just keeps feeding and it's never satisfied, and it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's that unquenchable thirst. And what the mind will do is it'll chase after things and it'll get so excited and welcome in this excitement because it feels very pleasurable to have that conditioned pleasant feelings. But these conditioned pleasant feelings are going to lead to obsession of the mind. That's what the Buddha is explaining. And then if the mind is obsessed, now there's bondage, meaning your mind is all bound up. So for example, if I walk past a restaurant and I see in the window that they have this amazing looking chocolate cake, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that chocolate cake. Oh, I want that chocolate cake so bad. And now I go into the restaurant and I sit there and just so indulgent in that chocolate cake. And my mind just like, oh my gosh, this is the best chocolate cake I've ever had. Right. So now there's all this welcomed excitement in the mind, conditioned pleasant feelings. Now, when that whole experience is over and I leave, now the mind is just obsessed. It can't wait to get back to that restaurant. I just want to go there tomorrow or the next day or next week. The mind is longing, yearning. It's bound up. It almost becomes tired and exhausted, right? You might have had these experiences where you remember your mind doing this, where your mind was just exhausted, thinking about the same thing over and over and over and over again. This is the obsession of mind. This is the bondage, because the mind is bound by this central desire. This is the mind longing, yearning through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. So in this particular discourse, we've shortened it up to be able to just talk about forms. But whenever the Buddha talks about the six sense bases, he talks about all the six sense bases, especially with the fetter of central desire. So this is happening with all of the six sense bases. Maybe think back to when you were a teenager and you heard a certain song on the radio and you were so excited about that song, right? And you got so thrilled when it came on the radio and you just couldn't wait for it to come back on again. You were just listening every moment for that song to come on, right? Because we didn't have, on demand, music. We had to wait with the radio for that song to come on. And we might have listened to the radio for 3 or 4 hours just waiting for that song to come on, right? That's the mind being obsessed. And that's the dwelling with a partner. So even though you're alone, the Buddha is saying that you're dwelling with this partner because you have to feed this monster of a craving, and you have to keep feeding it over and over and over again. So what the Buddha is guiding an individual to do is to get to the point where they don't have this, that you can be independent of any cravings, desires, attachments, where you don't have to carry around this burden. And the way that you do that is, even though you're going to be experiencing contact through the six sense spaces that is desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, and tempting, you need to be able to not welcome in those conditioned pleasant feelings. Here, the word excitement is being used. This is conditioned pleasant feelings. So if you welcome it in, then your mind's going to get so enamored with those conditioned pleasant feelings that you can only be happy when you get what you want. And then when you're not getting it, when you go to that restaurant and the chocolate cake is not there, now you're going to be upset or angry or frustrated. So it's a matter of learning how to enjoy the chocolate cake and not allow the conditioned pleasant feelings to come into the mind. It's a matter of enjoying that music, but not allowing the conditioned pleasant feelings to be there. And that sounds very foreign for someone who maybe hasn't trained their mind to understand that this is actually possible. So if you're not seeking excitement, it's just like, wow, looks like a wonderful piece of chocolate cake. I think I want to go in here. I'm interested in tasting this cake. And now you sit down and you eat it, and it's like, oh, wow, that's some amazing chocolate cake, right? And now you enjoy it. You enjoy the company that you're with. You enjoy the chocolate cake. And now when it's done, right? You're off to the next thing. Your mind's not obsessed about it. You're not longing, yearning for it. You can't just wait until the next one. No, that's not where the mind is. It's like, wow, that was really amazing. If I'm ever back in this area, maybe I'll come have another piece of this chocolate cake. And you let it be. You just leave it there, right? So by not allowing the mind to get the conditioned pleasant feelings of excitement, then you won't get the painful feelings. So if you get a new job and you get so excited about that, well, when you get laid off 3 years later, you're going to be angry or frustrated about that. So you need to learn how to be appreciative and have gratitude of that new job, and now go in and do a really good job. But all the while, make sure you understand that this job is not permanent. Because then when there's no excitement in the mind, there's no obsession. And when there's no obsession, there's no bondage. The mind's not bound up. It's free. It's liberated. The Buddha is explaining that the mind has released this fetter of sensual desire, and now this individual is a lone dweller, right? There's monsters no longer there. You don't have to feed this. You're not carrying around this heavy burden on your shoulders anymore. So let me know what questions you guys have on this chapter. This is chapter 3 in volume 4. Right, I'm not seeing any oh, there we go, Liz. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. David, thank you for taking the question. So I'm just wondering about, I'm looking at I feel sometimes like indecision can be a form of bondage. And so I'm wondering what role craving can play in like indecision or perseveration, or like, does that question make sense?
Yeah, the Buddha calls this wavering, where the mind wavers, where, there's maybe 2, 3, 4 decisions and your mind wavers back and forth, or you've made a decision, you maybe even start walking forward with that decision, and then you retract and go backwards. And now your mind wavers and you kind of like jump around from thing to thing to thing. This is the mind's craving, that it doesn't know what is necessarily the best decision, because the mind's pulling it on all these different directions. Let's just say there's like 3 job offers that someone has, and they're really struggling with what decision to make. Maybe this one has more money. Maybe this one's closer to your house. Maybe this one has a better office, right? And the mind's craving is pulling you in all those 3 different directions in these 3 different jobs. And now the mind is indecisive about which thing it would actually be best. So that's from the mind's craving. But when you get back to, well, what's really important to me here? I need to grow my career. I need to grow my skills. I need to make sure I have a decent income. I need to make sure I have great projects. I need to have mentors. I need to, I need to have training, these different things, that it's not just money. It's not just being close to my house. It's not just about an office. What are the things that are really important? And that's where you can look at your needs versus your wants, because your mind's going to want to pull you towards Okay, looks like Leo. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Dirk. This holy life is lived for the bending of existence. This world is burning, harmed by contact. It calls disease at itself. By whatever means it understands, it becomes otherwise than that. Becoming otherwise, the world is attached to becoming harmed by existence, and yet has existence in that very existence. Where there's existence, there is fear. What one fears is stressful. This holy life is lived for the abandoning of existence. Whatever ascetics or Brahmins say that liberation from existence is by means of existence, all of them are not released from existence, I say. And whatever ascetics or Brahmins say that escape from existence is by means of non-existence, all of them have not escaped from existence, I say. For the stress comes into play in dependence on every gain of material possessions. With the ending of every craving desire, there's no stress coming into play. Look at this world. Beings afflicted with thick ignorance are unreleased from passion for what has come to be. All levels of existence, anywhere, in any way, are impermanent, stressful, subject to change. Seeing this as it comes to be, with right wisdom, one abandons craving for existence and doesn't have excitement in non-existence. From the total ending of craving comes fading and elimination, without remainder, liberation, enlightenment. For the monk who is liberated through lack of craving desire, there is no further existence. He has conquered Mara, won the battle, having gone beyond existence. Such. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Leo. So this is actually a discourse that the Buddha gave right after coming out of a long meditation. He did a really long meditation, and he came out of the meditation and he went to his students and he said, the world is burning, right? So these three fires, craving, anger, and ignorance, this is the world burning. You can look around the world and you can see, yeah, the world is significantly burning. There's massive craving. There's massive anger. There's massive unknowing of true reality. And what the Buddha is saying here is that this individual is harmed by contact, that when they experience when they experience contact, they experience harm to the physical body. And then also in the unenlightened state, they're experiencing discontentedness. And the individual might call this themselves, that I am being harmed, right? This self is being harmed. Well, even though this individual is continuing to experience harm in this world, what the Buddha is essentially getting to here is, but yet they still want to keep coming back over and over and over again. They haven't gotten to the point where they've let go of craving, desire, attachment to the point where they're not interested to come back any longer. So even though they keep experiencing this discontentedness and this harm over and over, they keep wanting to come back over and over and over again instead of training their mind and getting out of this world and not continuing to experience existence over and over and over again. So that's what he's basically saying through all of this. I think this is very straightforward, where he is showing, cause and effect here. If there's excitement in the mind, there's fear. What he means by this is, let's just say you get a brand new car and you're so excited about that brand new car, but now you're fearful that someone's going to scratch it. And now maybe when you go park it at a shopping center, you want to park it all the way in the back of the parking lot because you're afraid somebody might scratch it, right? Or maybe you get so excited about this brand new job that you just got, but now you're afraid that you're going to lose it, or you're afraid that people aren't going to like you, right? So whenever there's conditional excitement, the mind is holding on to that and it wants it to be permanent. And now there's fear that that's going to not be permanent. And of course, it's not permanent. So when there's fear, the mind is having stress, right? Even though you park your car all the way back in the back of the parking lot and you go in the store, the mind is in the store thinking about, oh my gosh, is somebody going to scratch my car? Is somebody going to, wreck into my car? Any of these kinds of things, right? So the Buddha is showing this cause and effect here. Eventually he gets here and he talks about how other aesthetics and Brahmins might say, whatever aesthetic or Brahmins say that liberation from existence, meaning no longer experiencing rebirth is by means of existence, meaning coming back into the world again, all of them are not released from existence, I say, right? So this is what you'll hear a lot of people talk about in various communities, that they want to come back into the world again. And that's the way that the world is going to improve, is if they come back into the world over and over and over again. And what the Buddha is saying is, yeah, you're not liberated, you're not enlightened, you don't understand. But also, if you would like to escape from existence by means of non-existence, meaning you want to kill yourself, you want to end your life. There's people who set themselves on fire in protest of a government or a war or something like that. And the Buddha is saying, yeah, those people haven't escaped existence either. They haven't gotten to enlightenment. Escaping existence is the same thing as getting to enlightenment, because if you've escaped existence, you've gotten to enlightenment. So he's saying these individuals that are thinking in this way, they haven't actually gotten to enlightenment yet. So for stress comes into play in dependence on every material gain, this possessions, right? That's where the mind's going to have stress. If you cling and hold on to these material possessions, you need to learn how to acquire something, use it, take care of it, but not cling to it obsessively, but also not be on the other side where you're not really taking care of it either. So then he says, with the ending of craving, then there's no stress coming into play. Because if you're not holding on to it, if you understand that it's impermanent, then there's no stress there, right? So then he goes on, like I mentioned, and he basically sums this up, where he talks essentially about how even though there's this harm that people experience on a day-to-day basis, they keep wanting to come back into the world over and over and over and over and over again. But through eliminating craving, desire, attachment, that's what's going to lead to the ending of existence, where you've conquered Mara and won the battle. I think we've talked about this being before. This is a formless being. Some people refer to this being as devil or Satan or Lucifer, that is interested in causing unwholesome things in the world. And this being will try to influence beings into doing unwise things, so that when they make those decisions, now they're going to experience unwholesome results. So this being can't force you or control you to do anything, but it can try to influence you to do unwise things. So the Buddha is saying, okay, you've conquered this being, you've won the battle, you've gone beyond any further existences once you've eliminated all craving, desire, attachment, because the mind's now enlightened, it's liberated. So let me know what questions you guys have on this chapter, if any at all. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. And once again, here you can also see that this holy life is lived for the abandoning of existence. It's not to come back into the world over and over and over again. Okay, I don't see any questions. So let's go to the next chapter. Is there someone who would like to read this next one? This is chapter 5. Okay, it looks like Liz, and then Samantha's after that.
Okay. With destruction of excitement and craving comes destruction of discontentedness. A monk sees as impermanent the I which is actually impermanent. That is his right view. Seeing rightly, he experiences a fading away of strong feelings. With the destruction of excitement comes the destruction of craving. With the destruction of craving comes the destruction of excitement. With the destruction of excitement and craving, the mind is said to be well liberated. A monk sees as impermanent the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, which is actually impermanent. Seeing rightly, he experiences a fading away of strong feelings. The destruction of excitement and craving, the mind is said to be well liberated.
Okay, thank you, Liz. So here the Buddha is repeating this entire statement multiple times for each one of the 6 sense bases, and also not only the internal sense bases, but the external sense bases. So here, this is something you guys are probably well familiar with at this point, that yes, all these things are impermanent, and by eliminating craving, desire, attachment, the mind is experiencing liberation. Here, the Buddha is describing the destruction of conditioned pleasant feelings. And I think you guys are understanding that if you allow the mind to get conditioned pleasant feelings, the painful ones are right around the corner. So what you're looking to do is not have conditional excitement or conditional happiness, but you're looking to experience unconditional happiness, unconditional joy, where there doesn't need to be any condition met for the mind to be cheerful and glad and bright and uplifted. That's what enlightenment is, where the mind is experiencing unconditioned mental qualities. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. This one's pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, I don't see any questions. So now we'll go to chapter 6. Is there someone who'd like to read this? Oh, I think it's Samantha. Go ahead, ma'am.
With the elimination of excitement comes the complete destruction of discontentedness. Puna, there are forms recognizable by the eye that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tempting. If a monk does not seek excitement in them, does not welcome them, and does not remain holding to them, excitement is eliminated in him. With the elimination of excitement, Puna, there is elimination of discontentedness, I say. There are Puna, sounds recognizable by the ear, odors recognizable by the nose, flavors recognizable by the tongue, physical objects recognizable by the body, mental objects recognizable by the mind that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, and tempting. If a monk does not seek excitement in them, does not welcome them, and does not remain holding to them, excitement is eliminated in him. With the elimination of excitement, Puna, there is the elimination of discontentedness, I say.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. So this is the same thing that we've been talking about for these last couple of chapters. And I've shared it this way in the past, where I've explained to you that if there's, kind of like a secret sauce to the path to enlightenment, even though there's no secret sauce, right? The secret sauce is understanding that the conditional pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. It becomes very intuitive that you're eliminating anger and sadness and frustration, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, resentment, all these things. Of course, people are interested in eliminating that. But when you start talking about eliminating conditional happiness or excitement or thrill or euphoria, people, when they're first getting started, they're a little bit, not sure, right? They're not understanding that conditional excitement is leading to the painful feelings. That in order to get rid of all discontentedness, in order to get rid of 100% of all discontentedness in the mind, you need to be able to understand the conditioned pleasant feelings are part of the problem. That's the temporary happiness. If you allow the mind to get the temporary happiness, the painful ones are right around the corner. And if you allow the mind to get the temporary happiness, you'll never get to the permanent happiness. Because if your mind's basing its inner feelings on this object, then it's going to do that time after time after time after time. And now it can only be happy if it has that object. And because that object is not permanent, when you don't have that anymore, the mind's going to experience the painful feelings. So you would like to get to the point where the mind has unconditional happiness, where whether it has that object or not, you can still maintain your peace and your joy. So if it's sunny outside or if it's raining outside, you can still be peaceful and joyful. If your bank account balance is up here or it's down here, you can still be joyful. If you're employed or you're unemployed, you can still maintain your joy, right? If you're with your life partner, you're not with your life partner, you can still maintain your joy. If you have transportation or don't have transportation, you can still maintain your joy, right? You can see, right? Like you go out with your friends and have fun. Okay, you can have fun. And you can stay home by yourself. You can still have fun. Your mind's not bound up and dependent on these things for your excitement and your joy. You can have joy in all of these situations. You're not basing your inner feelings on some external object. As long as you allow your mind to continue to do that, you'll never get rid of those painful feelings. Because as soon as your mind grabs on and welcomes in those conditioned pleasant feelings, when that object is no longer present, then the mind's going to go into the painful feelings. So this is something that I really make sure you guys are aware of. So let me know if you guys have any questions on this. You can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. So it looks like Samantha has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. In relation to, let's say, the chocolate cake example that you used before, where you walk past a restaurant and you see the chocolate cake. So let's say that I do like chocolate cake, but I'm not craving it. And I walk past the restaurant and I see the chocolate cake and I'm pleasantly surprised. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to go in and have the cake. And like, there might be a moment of, I don't want to say excitement, but just, I guess, joyfulness that it's there. Is that still craving if I would have been okay if the cake wasn't there?
If you're okay. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Yeah. And is that also considered a pleasant feeling, like something that I would try to tamp down? But once again, as I said, I would have been okay without the cake, but it is something that I like. And so I was, happy to see it.
Okay. So whenever you're happy because of something, that is a conditioned feeling, right? Because you're saying it actually two different ways. You're saying, I'm happy because the cake's there, but I'm also happy if it's not there. Those two things are not matching, right? If you're happy because of the cake, then that means that you're not going to be happy when it's not there. So you need to be happy before you ever saw the cake. Before you ever saw the cake, you were just walking down the street. You were just had a big old smile on your face. Piece of chocolate cake. That sounds pretty interesting. Let's go in here and see what's going on. Let's see, if we can get ourselves a piece of chocolate cake. So you walk in and you get your chocolate cake. Okay, wonderful. But if they don't have if they're like, oh, we just sold that piece to someone else. Sorry, you can't have it. Okay, that's fine. Have a lovely day. We'll see you guys later. Right? Or whatever it is that you decide to do. So it's the because of, that's the conditioned feeling.
Okay, so you would never just be joyful or grateful for something. It doesn't have to be the chocolate cake. That's kind of I can't think of another example, but so being joyful or grateful, is that also a pleasant feeling?
When I describe joy, I describe it as an unconditioned mental state, as opposed to a feeling. That it's a mental state, is just always there, and there's no condition that is met in order for it to be there. You just walk down the street, and whether you're walking down the street, you're driving down the street, you're sitting on a bench, you're riding a bicycle, it doesn't matter. Your mind is just always bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted. There doesn't need to be any condition met. Even if you're sitting at home in it's raining, pouring down raining outside, you're still joyful. You're sitting in traffic, you can still be joyful. So that's unconditioned joy, that no matter what, the mind is still joyful. And what you'll experience is you'll experience certain windows of time where your mind will be experiencing that unconditioned joy. But then because there's still craving in the mind, boom, you'll get some discontentedness, either conditioned pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant feelings. But then that window of time where you're experiencing the unconditioned happiness and joy, that starts to expand wider and wider, multiple minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and gets wider and wider. But then boom, you're going to get some discontentedness, but then you're going to be able to get your mind out of that and now get back to the unconditioned peace and joy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. Don't see any other questions anywhere. So let's go to the next one, which is chapter 7. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, Alberto or Martha, go ahead, guys.
Teacher, I have a question regarding the previous chapter.
Oh, sure.
I was too slow, actually. Yes. So regarding meditation, I'm feeling like I'm not excited without it. I cannot be okay without meditation. So, and I'm experiencing a lot of discontentedness when I don't meditate. It's not something like a piece of chocolate cake. If I have it, I'm okay. If I don't have it, I'm okay. With meditation, it's a different thing because I know the benefits of it, and I know how important is it, how important it is. So that's why I'm experiencing this. How can I balance that discontentedness?
Okay, so it sounds like there's a craving or attachment to meditation, and this is where you can see there's no such thing as a wholesome attachment or a wholesome craving. Even if you're attached to meditation, it's going to produce discontentedness, right? So at some point, you're going to need to eliminate that. Based on what I know that's going on for you right now, now isn't the best time for you to do this, because what you're going to ultimately need to do is you're going to need to not meditate. You're going to need to like step away from meditation for like a day or two, then meditate, and then step away for a day or two and meditate. You're going to need to do that, but now's not the right time based on what's going on in your life, because you need that meditation to help you with what it is that you're working on. But just know that this is something that you're going to need to get to at some point in the future, where you're going to need to introduce some impermanence into your meditation, where some days you meditate and some days you don't. But you'd like to get to a really nice long period where your mind's quite peaceful, quite joyful. There's not a lot of things going on in your life. You're not changing jobs. You're not having to take care of someone who's maybe medically needing your help and things like this. So you would like to get past all of those types of things so that then you can introduce some impermanence here. So get a nice long, multiple weeks and even months of where you see some peacefulness. And then when you're ready to tackle this, you're going to need to introduce some impermanence where some days you meditate and some days you don't. And you might need to do that for a week or two or three. And during those periods of time where you're not meditating, you're going to need to apply right effort to lift up your mind and be cheerful and glad and peaceful, even when you're not meditating on those days. And then when you can do that consistently, now you go back to your meditation of meditating daily.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay. I'm not sure if you were interested in reading this, Martha, or should I ask someone else? Okay.
Mindfulness directed to the body, a strong post for mind. One dwells without having set up mindfulness of the body. Suppose monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds and tie them to by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey, and tied each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would tie the ropes together with a knot in the middle and release them. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the directions of its own feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, "Let me enter and fill." The crocodile would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter the water." The bird would pull another way, thinking, "Let me fly up into the sky." The dog would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a village." A jackal would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a charnel ground." The monkey would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a forest." Now then, these 6 animals become worn out and fatigued. They would be dominated by the one among them that was strongest. They would submit to it and come under its control. So, too, monks, when a monk has not developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye pulls in the direction of agreeable forms, and disagreeable forms are repulsive. The ear pulls in the direction of agreeable sound, and disagreeable sounds are repulsive. The nose pulls in the direction of agreeable odors, and disagreeable odors are repulsive. The tongue pulls in the direction of agreeable flavors, and disagreeable flavors are repulsive. The body pulls in the direction of agreeable physical objects, and disagreeable physical objects are repulsive. The mind pulls in the direction of agreeable mental objects, and disagreeable mental objects are repulsive. In such a way, there is non-restraint.
There's more here, Martha, but if I could pause you so that I can talk about this first part, that would be great. So this first part, what the Buddha is talking about is somebody has these 6 animals and they tie a rope around their neck, and then all those 6 strings, those ropes, they tie a knot in the middle. And now all these 6 animals are pulling in all these different opposite directions. And eventually the animals are going to become fatigued, and whichever one is the strongest, they're going to pull in that direction. That, let's just say the alligator, I think there's an alligator, crocodile, one of the bird, crocodiles in here. So let's just say all the other animals tire out, the bird, the jackal, all these other ones, the monkey and everything, they all tire out. But now the crocodile is pulling all the other animals in a certain direction. The Buddha is saying the same thing here is true about the mind, that you have these 6 sense bases, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. If there's no restraint, if there's no mindfulness, if there's no awareness of mind that is guarding and protecting the mind, that means that when you experience contact through your 6 sense bases, whichever one has the strongest craving, you're going to be pulled in that direction. So let's just say you're walking in the mall, and as you're walking in the mall, you see these beautiful people, these handsome people. Well, if your mind has sensual desire to look at the physical form of other beings, you're going to be pulled in that direction. Or say that you smell a certain odor. Maybe they're making bread, some pretzels downstairs in one of the stalls, and now your nose is pulling in that direction. Or your ear, maybe you hear some music in another store, and now you're being pulled in that direction, right? So you can see how the mind does that. So when you have agreeable contact through these 6 sense bases, if the mindfulness is not developed and cultivated, the mind's going to pull in those directions of the agreeable object. But if you don't have mindfulness developed and you experience disagreeable contact, now you're going to be repulsed by that. You're going to want to push it away. This is aversion. And the Buddha is calling this non-restraint, that the mind is not restrained. Firstly, because it doesn't have mindfulness or awareness of mind fully developed. So because the mind's not aware what it's doing, it's just going to pull in this agreeable direction, or it's going to push away this disagreeable. And this is called non-restraint. Because the mind's craving, desire, attachment is in there, there's no mindfulness or awareness of mind developed. So therefore, the mind's just going to be pulling. And now this is where you get utterly exhausted at the end of your day because your mind's been pulling in all these different directions. But now he's going to talk about restraint and how the mind can actually experience restraint. And Martha, I'm not sure if you'd like to keep reading. You're welcome to, or I can call on someone else.
I can do it. One besides having set up mindfulness of the body, suppose monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains in different feeding grounds and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey, and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would bind them to a strong post or pillar. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction of its feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, let me enter the enfield. The crocodile will pull another way, thinking, let me enter the water. The bird will pull another way, thinking, let me fly up into the sky. The dog will pull another way, thinking, let me enter a village. The jackal will pull another way, thinking, let me enter a eternal ground. The monkey would pull another way, thinking, let me enter the forest. Now, when these 6 animals become worn out and fatigued, they will stand close to a post or pillar. They will sit down there. They will lie down there. So too, monks, when a monk has developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye does not pull in the direction of agreeable forms, or nor are disagreeable forms repulsive. The ear does not pull in the direction of agreeable sounds, nor are disagreeable sounds repulsive. The nose does not pull in the direction of agreeable odors, nor are disagreeable odors repulsive. The tongue does not pull in the direction of agreeable flavors, nor disagreeable flavors are repulsive. The body does not pull in the direction of agreeable physical objects, nor are disagreeable physical objects repulsive. The mind does not pull in the direction of agreeable mental objects, nor are disagreeable mental objects repulsive. And it is in such a way that there is restraint. A strong pose or pillar. This, monks, is designation of mindfulness directed to the body. Therefore, monks, you should train yourself thus. We will develop and cultivate mindfulness directed to the body. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So here we've got a little bit of a different part of this analogy. Instead of the animals being tied to each other in a knot in the middle, the individual has tied the animals to a post, to a pillar. The post or the pillar is your mindfulness. It's your developed mindfulness, your breathing mindfulness meditation that you've trained your mind to be able to be aware of what's going on. When he says mindfulness directed to the body, what he's talking about is being aware of those bodily sensations as part of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Those bodily sensations are the early warning system that's alerting you that your mind's about to form a conditioned feeling. So having animals tied to this post or pillar, now if they pull, they're going to get yanked back to that post or pillar. And then they pull again and they get yanked back. And then they pull again and they get yanked back. And each time they get yanked back, they get more and more tired. And then eventually they're like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to sit down and be calm next to this post and pillar. So your mind is the same way. In meditation, it's going to keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, and you keep yanking it back and yanking it back and yanking it back. Over multiple years of training this way, eventually your mind's going to be calm and sit by that post or pillar. You're still going to have the thoughts during meditation, but your mind will have stillness and quietness in between those thoughts. And then the same thing is happening in your day-to-day life. That in your day-to-day life, where you see your mind longing, yearning, and pulling, and you see those bodily sensations occurring that your mind's about to experience, conditioned feelings, whether they're pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, you need to cut those off. That's yanking the animal back to the post or pillar. You need to yank your mind back to the post or pillar. And as you do this over time, the mind is going to get worn out. It's going to get fatigued. It's going to get tired. Because every time it pulls, you keep yanking it back. And it's going to learn, hey, every time I do this, every time I pull, he or she keeps bringing me back, and I'm just not going to pull anymore. It's going to be like that wild animal. So now there's restraint. So the Buddha is saying this mindfulness directed to the body is a key aspect of this. You would need to exercise yourself in it. You would need to make it your basis, stabilize it. You need to fully perfect it where you can observe and notice those bodily sensations occurring prior to the mind experience a feeling. This is the first foundations of mindfulness. So something like anger, for example, is tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. That's what you need to have awareness of. That's the early warning system. Cut that off. Don't allow your mind to have that conditioned feeling. Same thing is true with the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. Like, say you're going to be shy. You might notice queasiness in the stomach. Cut that off. Don't allow your mind to experience the shyness. Even these conditioned pleasant feelings that we've been talking about in the first part of the class, they have bodily sensations too. Oftentimes people indulge in those because it's not as intuitive to cut those off because it feels so pleasurable. The anger and all those other things that are painful, it's intuitive to cut those off. You just need to develop the ability to do it. But when you're indulging in things, you might not notice that tingling across your shoulders, up the back of your neck, over the top of your head. That's the warm fuzzies that people talk about. And sometimes they're like, oh, that feels so good. I want some more of those. That's the welcoming it in. That's what the Buddha is saying. Don't do that. Don't welcome that stuff in. That when you notice that tingling sensation across the top of your shoulders and up over your neck and over your head, that's the early warning system alerting you you're about to experience a conditioned pleasant feeling. And if you welcome that in and you allow the mind to have that, the painful one's waiting for you. So you need to have that mindfulness directed to the body, being aware of the bodily sensations and cut it off, whether it's a pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. And it takes you quite a while to even fine-tune your mind to get to the point where you're aware of that every single time that those bodily sensations are arising. So that's why you're staying consistent with your breathing mindfulness meditation and practicing your generosity, and then practice your mindfulness or your awareness of mind all day long throughout your day. This is what's going to hone that for you so that then you can apply right after it and cut it off and let it go. One of the ways you might think about this mindfulness is like a virus scanner on the computer. It sits in the background looking at your hard drive. And whenever there is a virus that comes onto your hard drive, it quarantines it, it cleans it up and gets it off your hard drive. Your mindfulness is doing the same thing. It's watching over your mind. And anytime it sees one of these bodily sensations associated with craving, desire, attachment, and arising discontentedness, it needs to apply right effort and cut that off and get it out of there. Don't allow it to actually come into the mind. So let me know what questions you guys have here on either of these two discourses. Okay, it looks like Leo has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, David. Just for me, a reminder, if there is craving, desire, attachment, there will always be a body sensation afterwards coming. Also, sometimes that there's a craving, maybe it's very small, and I right away realized it, and there wasn't even a body sensation coming up. Is this normal?
There's going to be bodily sensations with any sensual desire. But you can have cravings like as part of the ego, as part of the conceit, that don't actually produce bodily sensations. That's why the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you need to be aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Some of those mental objects, they don't have bodily sensations associated with them. And that's why you need to have awareness of them. So mainly the higher fetters, they don't have the bodily sensations associated with it. So, desire for form, desire for formless, conceit, restlessness, those don't have bodily sensations. So you need to be aware of the symptoms of what those are, as well as the lower fetters too, so that when you see the symptom of it, that you're not going to be clued into it because it doesn't have a bodily sensation, but you need to be clued into the symptom and now apply right effort to cut that off.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't see. Oh, Vibhav has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Teacher David. I had a question along the same lines as Leo. So, like right now, when I was listening to what you were saying, I was having other thoughts come into my mind about things that have been going on. And then my mind was kind of drifting, and I was trying to pull back and concentrate on what you were saying, focus on what you were saying. Those thoughts are also arising because of some craving, right? Because I'm trying to have some cravings about things that I would like in my life, but those will not have any bodily sensation to them, right? It's just, and they are order of sensual desire, but I don't see what the thoughts that arise, what bodily sensation they will produce. Able to state my question correctly.
There are bodily sensations, but your mind isn't aware of them. That's why the Buddha teaches you to cultivate mindfulness directed to the body. So when you don't have mindfulness directed at the body, you will think that there weren't any bodily sensations, but it's just that the mind wasn't aware of them. They could have happened so quickly, or the mind just wasn't aware of them. They're there. If there's sensual desire involved in any of the 6 sense bases, there's bodily sensations. It's just that the mindfulness isn't developed enough to be able to see it. That's why you need to cultivate it and develop it. It takes sometimes multiple years to develop just the ability to see and experience the bodily sensations every single time so that somebody can actually then apply right effort. That's why this isn't, a 1 week journey, a 1 month journey, or a 1 year journey. It's a multiple year journey of developing the mind and getting it to the point where you're spotting the bodily sensations every time. But you'll be led to think that there weren't bodily sensations because the mind just isn't aware of it. There's not enough mindfulness there yet.
Thank you. There seems to be like Or maybe it's a constant bodily sensation. There is constant like I guess maybe related to the stress from the one of the earlier discourses, that the stress that craving produces. There's like a constant tightening in the chest or like in the feet, but there's a constant like tightness in the body due to the craving, or seems to be due to the craving. That something would be a bodily sensation.
Yeah, you can get clued into that, and you can see like if there's tightening in the feet, and you're noticing them contract, or other parts of the body. That's part of the bodily sensations. The body is experiencing this, and that's the early warning system alerting you your mind's about to form a conditioned feeling. If you back this up, you're going to see that there's some contact through the six sense bases. In your case, it was through the mind sense base. You were just thinking about something. So there's always going to be contact through one of the six sense bases. Then there's going to be bodily sensations, and then there's going to be the feeling. So you just need to really slow the mind down enough to be able to see this every single time. And it takes a lot of work to be able to get the mind to that point. But yeah, that could be a bodily sensation as well.
Yeah, I'm noticing that more and more, like the feet, the tightening in the feet is coming up. I'm kind of noticing it more and more coming up.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I tend to do all day. Is like my feet just tightens up.
Yeah, the other thing that can be present is there can almost be, it kind of sounds like what you're describing a little bit, is there like this low level hum of discontentedness. It's not like there's like this acute situation where boom, the discontentedness comes flying into the mind, but it's almost like this persistent low level hum in the mind where it's just kind of like, a little bit agitated, or a little bit, whatever the discontent feeling is, it's just almost like this low level hum that's in the mind. It sounded like that's kind of like what you were describing, that sometimes you can notice that. And this is the condition of the mind that the mind's having. And this is where you need to be aware of that foundation as well. But you would like to back it up all the way to the bodily sensations and catch it before it gets to that point.
Yeah, there is always a low level hum of discontentedness that is persistent. It's just there.
So that's the condition of the mind. So that's the third foundation of mindfulness. You would like to back this up, where you can notice the feeling and then ultimately notice the bodily sensation, because that's where you're getting ahead of the curve.
And so I guess that is only achievable through like this meditation, noticing the craving, and then mindfulness to catch it at that point, right?
Yeah, so it's extensive amounts of breathing mindfulness meditation over a long-term period of time, multiple years. And it's also practicing mindfulness in your day-to-day life. You need to be able to be very diligent to be practicing your mindfulness at all times during your day, whether you're driving, whether you're walking down the street, whether you're sitting on the toilet, whether you're washing dishes. No matter what you're doing, you're always needing to practice mindfulness and be attentive to the mind. That's the guard. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you're practicing that effortlessly, but you need to apply a lot of right effort to bring your mind up to the point where you can practice that level of mindfulness at all times.
Yeah, and is it when I was like listening to the discourse, like when you were speaking, and my mind was wavering off, trying to get back to concentrating and focusing on what you were saying. It kind of helped me to like focus on the breath.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good way of kind of doing it as well, or is that something that you're then dependent on something external, it's not the mind?
Yeah, you can do that. That's your post, that's your pillar. So at any time, if you've been meditating regularly, you've got that ability to bring your mind back to the breath. So at any time during your day, if you're noticing your mind's not where you would like it to be, you can just close your eyes. You can start focusing on the breath, whether you're at a stoplight, whether you're in a bathroom stall at work, whether you're walking down the street, you can just stop and just close your eyes, just breathe in and focus your mind on that, and that'll cut it off. That's what the Buddha describes, how breathing mindfulness meditation eliminates any evil, unwholesome thought on the spot. And this is one of the benefits of having done a certain amount of meditation, that at any point you can use that breath as a way to resync the mind. It's almost like rebooting the mind. And sometimes you only need 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or a minute or something like that. Over time, you'll get better and better where you can just internally cut that off. It's no big deal. But in the process of getting there, you can use this kind of thing to help you.
Okay, thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Looks like Leo has a question too. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Teacher David. This mindfulness, we could say, could be our key focus. Could we say that we really try to, this is like something we really, every day, we remind ourselves to be mindful all day. This is one of the most important things on this path, besides meditation, of course. But
yeah, that's very important. It's a linchpin. That's how the Buddha describes it. It's the linchpin. You know, if you have a chariot with a horse and then you've got a chariot, the thing that's holding this all together is the linchpin in the middle. If you pull out the linchpin, the whole thing falls apart, right? So if you don't have mindfulness, everything falls apart, right? Like you're driving down the street, you're not paying attention to your mind, and boom, next thing you know, you're angry and frustrated because you didn't have that guard. That's what the mindfulness is. It's like a guard. It's the linchpin. You really need to pay attention to that. And all the things that you're working on with the breathing mindfulness meditation and everything else is helping you to build that mindfulness. So yeah, that's a very important part of your practice. Mm-hmm.
I also have another question, but I think it doesn't really fit into this class right now or into these topics. Is it something maybe we can talk after the class for short? Or
sure, there's another person I'm going to be talking with after class, but if you'd like to stick around, you're welcome to.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, we have a question coming in on YouTube. This person says, hi, Teacher David, this is Yihang. I have a question regarding the low-level hum condition of the mind. They are difficult for me to detect sometimes at this stage when it is detected. Yeah, that's just because the mindfulness isn't well developed yet. The same thing of why somebody wouldn't be able to notice the bodily sensations is there's just not enough breathing mindfulness meditation accumulated yet, and there's not enough practice of mindfulness in your day-to-day life. So that's where you need to be able to apply effort to bring up the breathing mindfulness meditation more consistently, and then practice mindfulness in your day-to-day life very consistently. Okay, looks like Lyndon has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you, David. So you just said we should be training ourselves be mindful for the whole day, and I'm just checking the exact detail of that. Like for example, now I'm currently listening to you, and should I be mindful that right now I'm listening, or should I be mindful that my body, how I feel right now while listening to you? So I just wanted to make sure that I'm being mindful on the right object in this case.
Yeah, you would you would like your focus and concentration to be on the topic at hand, right? Of listening, in this case, listening to the teacher. But this mindfulness is like that virus scanner, like I mentioned. It's just kind of overlooking the mind, that you're sitting here focused and you're listening to the teacher, but you're just paying attention to what's going on with the mind, right? So that is just kind of watching over what's going on in the mind while your focus and concentration is on the topic at hand.
Got it. So it's a focus on the thing that is ongoing, but have a mindful know that actually I'm focusing on the things ongoing. Okay, and it's not always being about the mindful of the body, right? So because here we are talking about mindfulness of the body.
Right. So you're not just sitting there constantly looking at the body with your mindfulness. It's just that your mind needs to be attentive and kind of spring into action whenever you notice that there's the tingling of the arising of the bodily sensations, associated with discontentedness and a craving being triggered.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Looks like Liz has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hey, David, thank you. I'm noticing that I've been developing my mindfulness and meditation practice very assiduously in the last year and a half. And I'm noticing that when I'm in the presence of someone who I feel like is untethered or acting from a place of craving, or maybe they don't intend to do harm, but I'm perceiving what they're doing as maybe dishonest or maybe not mindful, I feel very physically anxious and almost in danger. And I am trying to mitigate that, to separate that from judgment or trauma response and look at it as this is a physical response to something that I'm perceiving, but may or may not be the truth. And trying to discern, when am I dealing with an attachment to my own safety and projecting something on them? And when am I actually in a situation where this conversation is an unwell conversation and I should remove myself? Is that too complicated of a question?
No, the thing that's going to let you see that is your wisdom. You need to have discernment or wise decision making, because you can't rely on your perceptions, because your perceptions could be true or false. And you can't rely on any cravings that's getting triggered and you're having certain bodily sensations. That's what you're used to in the unenlightened state, is that those things tend to drive decision making. And that's why we end up making unwise decisions, because we're basing our decisions in the unenlightened state on perceptions, which may or may not be true. So we're basing our decisions in maybe false truths, or we're basing our decisions based in emotion, which comes along with those bodily sensations. So you're looking to get away from all of that and strip all of that away and be able to see through it of what would really be wise in this situation. What is truly going on here? What is really actually happening? And sometimes it's helpful to step away. Like, say you're at a dinner table with 6 people and you're noticing your perceptions, you're noticing your feelings, your bodily sensations. You might decide to step away and go to the bathroom and just, catch your breath, do like we were talking with Vibhav, where you close your eyes, just focus on your breath, resync your mind, and just be like, what's going on here? Is this all in my head? Is this just a perception? Or is there really some truly unwise things that are happening and it's best for me to leave? And this is what will help you is your discernment, is your wise decision making. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Yihang has some more here. She says, can it be cut off immediately, or does it have to be retrieved all the way to the bodily sensations to get eliminated? In order for you to eliminate a craving, desire, attachment, you're going to have to cut all of these off at the bodily sensations. If you allow the mind to experience the conditioned feeling or get to the point where it's experiencing a condition of the mind, you're not ahead of the curve yet. The mind is still forming its feelings based on some external object. So that's why it's thought of as like a wild bush. Like if you have a wild bush and it's growing wildly, you need to cut it back and 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 cut it back. And then finally you can uproot it out of the mind. That's what you're doing with these cravings, is you might not notice some of the cravings until the mind is experiencing a condition of the mind. And now over time, with your mindfulness developing, with your meditation and your mindfulness in day-to-day life, you're cutting that back sooner and sooner. Now you're catching it right when it's a feeling, or now you're catching it when it's a bodily sensation. So by catching it as a bodily sensation, that's the real important thing that you'd like to be able to do, is catch these at each time as a bodily sensation. And that's getting ahead of the curve, not allowing the mind to form the conditioned feeling. And that's where the mind becomes rewired, where it no longer forms conditioned feelings. So you've got to get ahead of it to the bodily sensations. But oftentimes seeing it as a condition of the mind is one of the first parts, because that's where your mind's currently seeing that particular discontentedness and that craving. So now you work at it to try to catch it sooner and sooner and sooner. This is what the Buddha talks about. We've read a recent chapter where he was talking about maturing and release, where the mind needs to mature and mature and mature and mature before you can release it out of the mind. That's what he's talking about, is catching this sooner and sooner and sooner. And the mind needs to mature and have meditation soaked in and have the mindfulness soaked in your day-to-day life so that you can catch it as a bodily sensation. Okay. I think we've got all of our questions here. Let me just check. Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to the next chapter here. Would someone like to read this next chapter, 8? Okay. Vibhav, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. The simile of the tortoise. Monks, in the past, the tortoise was searching for food along the bank of a river one evening. On that same evening, the jackal was also searching for food along the bank of that same river. When the tortoise saw the jackal in the distance searching for food, it drew its limbs and neck inside its shell and passed the time keeping still and silent. The jackal had also seen the tortoise in the distance searching for food, so he approached and waited close by, thinking, when this tortoise extends one or another of its limbs or its neck, I will grab it right on the spot, pull it out and eat it. But because the tortoise did not extend any of its limbs or its neck, the jackal, failing to gain access to it, lost interest in it and departed. So too monks, Mara the evil one is constantly and continually waiting close by you, thinking, perhaps I will gain access to him through the eye or through the ear, or through the nose or through the tongue, through the body or through the mind. Therefore, monks, decide guarding the doors of the six sense spaces. Having seen a form with the eye, having heard a sound with the ear, having smelled an odor with the nose, having tasted flavor with the tongue, having touched a physical object with the body, having recognized a mental object of the mind, do not grasp its signs and features. Since, if you leave the eye sense space unguarded, the ear sense space unguarded, the nose sense space unguarded, the tongue sense space unguarded, the body sense space unguarded, the mind sense space unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of craving and displeasure might invade you. Practice the way of its restraint. Guard the eye sense space, the ear sense space, the nose sense space, the tongue sense space, the body sense space, the mind sense space. Undertake the restraint of the eye sense space, the ear sense space, the nose sense space, the tongue sense space, the body sense space, and the mind sense space. When, monks, you recite guarding the doors of the six sense spaces, Mara the evil one, failing the gate to gain access to you, will lose interest in you and depart, just as the jackal departed from the tortoise. Drawing in the mind's thoughts, if the tortoise draws its limbs into its shell, independent, not harassing others, fully extinguished, a monk would not blame anyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vibhav. So we've read this one recently in our previous volumes, but I'll go through this one again using an example that we were just talking about. So if you've got a tortoise, it has 6 limbs, the head, and it's got the 4 feet, and then it's got the tail. This is representative of the 6 sense spaces of the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind itself. That the mind, with its craving, desire, attachment, with its sensual desire, the mind's longing, yearning through these 6 sense spaces. So if you can draw those in, now you're less susceptible to discontentedness, right? So drawing those in, using this example I just had with Liz, where we were at maybe like a table of 6 of our friends, and now you're noticing that your mind's maybe getting triggered. Drawing in your limbs is going to the bathroom, right? And then giving yourself some space. You're drawing in your limbs. You're not just sitting there, going forward. And even though you're feeling awkward, you're feeling weird, you can step away from the conversation and draw in your limbs, right? This is what you would like to be able to do. The Buddha, of course, is here talking about Mara, this evil one, this formless being who's interested in causing calamity in the world, because that being is trying to influence you. So at any point in time, you can experience your mind having sensual desire. And it's your mindfulness that's going to be able to protect you there. That's what the Buddha is talking about here, where he says, guard the doorways of the 6 sense spaces. These doorways are how your mind is interacting with the world. Anytime you become discontent, there's going to be some contact through the 6 sense spaces that is triggering one of your sensual desires, one of your craving, desire, attachments, and you're going to see it as either agreeable or disagreeable. But if you draw that in and you protect your mind, then your mind's not able to experience a conditioned feeling. Because if you keep allowing your mind to stay wired that way, where it keeps experiencing the feeling, well, you're going to keep experiencing that over and over again. So that's why the Buddha is saying, drawing in the mind's thoughts as the tortoise draws in its limbs into the shell, right? That's what you would like to do, is draw it in, right? And there's no harm with going to the bathroom, spending 5 minutes there, washing your hands, and not coming back and in having the conversation. Or maybe you go into the bathroom, you stay there for 5 or 10 minutes, and you realize, no, I'm not interested in this conversation. And you just go back to the table and you excuse yourself, right? Even if you guys haven't even ordered yet and you're not interested in continuing forward in this group, you can just say, hey guys, so sorry, something came up. I need to leave. We'll catch up another time. Have a wonderful dinner, right? And now you just step away. But if your mind's craving and you're holding on, you won't do that. But that oftentimes can be the best thing for you to do in that situation. And that's where your wisdom comes in. And the Buddha says here at the very end, he talks about being independent, not harassing others. The mind is fully extinguished its craving, desire, attachments, and that you wouldn't blame anyone, meaning you wouldn't blame anyone for your feelings. You wouldn't blame anyone for the things that are going on in your own mind. It's your own mind that is causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. And you guys gathered that from the Four Noble Truths when you guys would have first learned that with me. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this particular chapter. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. You're welcome, Yihung. Pleased to help you. Okay, I don't see any questions, so we'll go to chapter 9, unless Vibhav, did you have a question there?
Please go back to the last chapter.
Sure.
In the last part, drawing the mind's thoughts, the tortoise draws its limb into its shell. A monk would not blame anyone. This is basically the right view. Am I correct?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so it looks like Pat was interested to read this one. Go ahead, sir.
The simile of the bowl of oil. Monks, suppose that on hearing the most beautiful girl of the land, the most beautiful girl of the land, a great crowd of people would assemble. Now that most beautiful girl of the land would dance exquisitely and sing exquisitely. On hearing the most beautiful girl of the land is dancing, the most beautiful girl of the land is singing, an even larger crowd of people would assemble. Then a man would come along, aspiring to live, not aspiring to die, aspiring for peacefulness, uninterested in discontentedness. Someone would say to him, good man, you must carry around this bowl of oil filled to the brim between the crowd and the most beautiful girl of the land. Man with a drawn sword will be following right behind you, and wherever you spill even a little of it, right there, he will cut off your head. What do you think, monks? Would that man stop attending to that bowl of oil and out of negligence turn his attention outwards? No, venerable sir. I have made up this simile, monks, in order to convey a meaning. This here is the meaning. The bowl of oil filled to the brim. This is a designation for mindfulness directed to the body. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate mindfulness directed to the body, make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus, monks, should you train yourselves. Monks, those who do not take part in mindfulness directed to the body do not take part in the deathless. Those who take part in mindfulness directed to the body, they take part in the deathless. Monks, those who are unattentive about mindfulness directed to the body are unattentive about deathless. Those who are attentive about mindfulness directed to the body are attentive to the deathless. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So here, this chapter is here for a reason, because everything we've been studying at this point has been building up to mindfulness, that you need this mindfulness. And here's a great analogy. We've studied this one before too, where there's a crowd on one side, there's this beautiful girl of the land, about to sing, and all these people are there. And now you're walking between the two of them with this bowl of oil filled to the brim, And if you spill even a little tiny bit of it, someone's going to cut off your head with a sword, right? The Buddha uses these really graphic analogies to help people remember his teachings because it's an oral tradition and you'll remember these kinds of things. Well, if that was really truly happening, you would pay a whole lot of attention to that oil in the bowl, right? The same thing is true about your mind with your mindfulness. You need to pay a whole lot of attention to the mind and practicing that mindfulness. What the Buddha is saying down here is those who do not take part in mindfulness directed to the body, who aren't aware of their bodily sensations, don't take part in the deathless, meaning enlightenment. That's how he sometimes refers to enlightenment as the deathless, because once you get to enlightenment, you're not experiencing death, you're experiencing final enlightenment. Those who take part in mindfulness directed at the body, they take part in the deathless. So what he's saying is you can't get to enlightenment without having awareness of the bodily sensations. This is the linchpin. This is the thing that you need to really pay a lot of attention to. You don't have to put pressure on yourself. You don't have to stress yourself out about it. But just understand that this is something that you need to work towards gradually over time, that with your mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation in your day-to-day practice, that you practice developing this awareness of mind. And you're going to lose your awareness of mind sometimes, but you need to be able to know that's what happened and now apply right effort to bring the mind back to that. And over time, you'll get to the point where you're just always aware of the mind and you'll be practicing it more effortlessly. So those who do not pay attention to this, they're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. So as you heard me share, sometimes it can take multiple years even to get to this point where you can notice the bodily sensations every single time. So let me know what questions you guys have here. This is fitting into everything we've been talking about the whole class. Okay, no questions. So one more chapter for today. This is the Buddha's teachings on breathing mindfulness meditation, because that's what's going to help you to get to the mindfulness or awareness of mind. So it looks like Liz would like to read that one. Go ahead, ma'am.
Great fruit and benefit of breathing mindfulness meditation. Monks, mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and benefit. And how, monks, is mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation, developed and cultivated so that it is of great fruit and benefit? Here, monks, a monk, having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or an empty hut, sits down. Having folded his legs crosswise, straightened his body, and set up mindfulness in front of him. Just mindful, he breathes in. Mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in long, he knows, I breathe in long. Or breathing out long, he knows, I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he knows, I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he knows, I breathe out short. He trains thus. Experiencing the whole body, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing the whole body, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Experiencing joy, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing joy, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Calming the mental activity, I will breathe in. Calming the mental activity, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Experiencing the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Gladdening the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Gladdening the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Concentrating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Concentrating the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Liberating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Liberating the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Reflecting on impermanence, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Reflecting on impermanence, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Reflecting on fading away, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Reflecting on fading away, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Reflecting on elimination, I will breathe in. He trains thus, reflecting on elimination, I will breathe out. He trains thus, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe in. He trains thus, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe out. It is, monks, when mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation, is developed and cultivated in this way, that it is of great fruit and benefit. When, monks, mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation, has been developed and cultivated in this way, one of two fruits may be predicted. Either final knowledge, wisdom, in this very life, or if there is residue clinging, state of non-return.
All right. Thank you, Liz. So this is the Buddha's guidance on breathing mindfulness meditation. You don't need to think about each one of these statements as you're actually meditating. Sometimes that's what people think when they read this. Instead, what he's teaching you to do is when you focus on the breath, anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. I teach this through all the various classes and courses and retreats that I share with you guys. I go into detail about this. There's a book that we're going to be studying, volume 7, which is all about breathing mindfulness meditation. And in there, I've broken down each section of this discourse and shown you what you're actually developing. But I've already done that with you, not with the discourse, but just teaching you in the foundational programs of how to meditate. You already know, you already have learned. And if you're working on developing your practice, that's what you're working on. But in terms of breaking this discourse down, I'm going to do that when we get to volume 7. Okay, so here, just understand the Buddha is giving you the step-by-step guidance, but it's not something you need to be thinking about while you're actually meditating. Just focus on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. That's what you're doing. It's building this internal mechanism to be able to cut off and let go. You're building your mindfulness or your awareness of mind, and you're building the concentration or the focus. And that's what's going to be needed in your day-to-day life as wholesome qualities that you're going to need to practice that mindfulness in day-to-day life and concentration, and to be able to cut off and let go. So let me know what questions you guys have here, if any, on this particular discourse. Okay, I don't see any questions. So I'm going to end just by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you guys for participating in class. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for reading. This is great that you guys are coming together to learn. This is outstanding to be able to develop your practice and be able to hear from other students' questions and how they're asking for guidance. It's going to help you as well. So thank you guys for your commitment to learning and growing each week. Next week, we're going to be in the next 10 chapters, 11 through 20. So if you'd like to read those before or after class, you're welcome to do that. These books are on our website, or you can get them on Amazon. You can get them at our temple. You'll be able to find them that way. And tomorrow in our group learning program, I'm going to be in volume 1, chapter 14, which is all about healthy mental states, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. This is where I'm going to teach the various symptoms that you're going to experience when you're not practicing those. And then I'm going to teach you how to bring those qualities in to be able to root out any kind of unwholesome qualities that are in the mind, and then bringing in these wholesome qualities. And then, of course, we have all of our other programs and retreats and opportunities for you guys to learn that you can find on our website. So thank you all for your dedication and determination to learn and grow and develop. And perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Take care. Sawadee Kap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.